From the Great Basin to the Rockies to the four corners of Utah, Colorado, Arizona, and New Mexico, this is KMMU Main Street Media Utah coming to you live. You can find us on Rumble, YouTube, X, and our website, kmmu.org. Please join our host, Goud Maragani, for the Goud Crowd, the only radio broadcast good enough to be monitored by Utah's State Bureau of Investigation. Take it away, Goud.
Okay, everybody, welcome to the Goud Crowd. I am your host, Goud. The show is named after me, in case you didn't figure that out. And so let me just start by wishing everybody a happy Juneteenth. That is the day that the last slave was learned that he or she, I don't know if it's a boy or girl, that they had been freed by the Emancipation Proclamation. Frankly, I actually don't think we should have Juneteenth as a holiday. The actual holiday should have been the date that the Emancipation Proclamation was signed. If you're going to have a holiday, the Juneteenth is more relevant if you live in Texas, where that last slave was actually released from and given their freedom. So that's just my thought on it. In case you were wondering, I want to start today. We have a really exciting show. We're going to talk first today to Clark Aposhian, and he is a firearms expert in Utah. I thought after the two shootings that happened this weekend, it would be useful to talk to somebody who understands Utah's gun laws and can maybe give us some background and information so that we can better evaluate what happened both at that No Kings rally in Salt Lake City and also what happened at the West Fest in West Valley City. And then after that, we'll have Tracy Halverson on to talk about Utah's flag initiative, the initiative process, and lessons learned from that, what happened in that situation. So let me just start with some background before we have Clark on. First on, actually, I don't remember if it was Saturday or Sunday. I guess it was Saturday. They had those No Kings, the quote unquote No Kings rallies where they were saying they didn't want to have a king. And I guess they think Trump is a king or something. But at the one that happened in Salt Lake City, there was a shooting. And I'm going to pull up the Tribune for this. Normally you should not do this because the Tribune is kind of a slanted piece. And I think this is worth just looking at. So what happened is a man named Sam Hernandez saw another man with a rifle in his backpack. So he said now he told the protesters gathered in the corner that he thought the man had a gun. When no one reacted, Hernandez did. Without thinking, he said in an interview with the Salt Lake Tribune Sunday, he walked over to who police later identified as Arturo Gamboa and said, "You have a gun in your bag," while he grabbed the backpack away. He tried to grab it a little bit, but I grabbed it and I held it out for the police, Hernandez said. A video posted by Jan Michael Paul on Reddit shows Hernandez saying loudly, "This is a rifle right here," and then flagging down nearby police. "Hey, this guy I just grabbed this from this guy. He's right there." A video provided to the Tribune by bystander Ben Behunin, if I mispronounce your name, I apologize, shows the next moments as officers stand over Gamboa and shoo away the protesters who had been sitting and standing next to him. He came from over there, Hernandez claims to two officers, urging them to check the backpack. Now, it's not actually Gamboa who fired the weapon. It was another man who was a peacekeeper who actually fired multiple shots that ended up killing a 39-year-old man who's a father of two young children and has a lovely family and a wife. So, I mean, really horrific results. And what I'm wondering, though, is there even an issue that this guy had a gun in his backpack? And I'm hoping we can get an answer to that, because I've been to many conservative events where people are open carrying at the events. And I've never thought it as never struck me as being a problem, and it's never even struck me as being anything to like. I would never do what this Hernandez guy did by pointing at someone out with a gun or really highlighting it, because there's lots of people carrying at these types of events. It was my understanding that in Utah we actually have a right to do so. So I'm wondering, I'm hoping from Clark we'll be able to learn more about what this means. What's the meaning of this? Should this have happened in the first place? And is this a situation where someone in the crowd did not understand Utah's gun laws? And then also with the peacekeeper portion of this, was the peacekeeper trained? But then I also have the question of, do you even have to have training to be a quote unquote peacekeeper? I'm not really sure what that term means, but maybe it's just a way to say a security guard. And if you are a security guard to events, do you have to have specific training before you do that, right? I just got something that says, I think this is Mr. Producer saying no issue with, I think he's actually saying, yeah, no issue, no problem to carry open or concealed. Let's see what Clark says. See, that's my understanding as well. And so if it's the case that people didn't understand what the law is and it caused this problem, right? That's what happened here. And if that's what happened, we need people to have a better understanding of what the laws are in Utah so this doesn't happen again. Okay, I wanted to, and it turned out he had, just so we're all on the same page, he had an AR-15 style rifle and a gas mask inside the backpack. I'll just say this, I don't actually know if that's bad, right? I mean, if you have the right to carry in Utah and I have seen people carry not just a sidearm or like a handgun, but actually carry larger weapons that they would strap onto their front or their back. So I don't know if the AR-15 piece of this is a problem. And then the gas mask part, the reality is, if you're paying attention, a lot of these leftists go to events with gas masks because they think they're going to get tear gassed. So, and let me just add, if you think that you're going to be tear gassed, maybe you should take a gas mask. I don't know. I mean, I don't usually go places thinking that myself, but if you do, I can understand why you would do that. Okay, let me see if there was anything else I want to highlight in here. Okay, well, that was that one. The other one is we had the second shooting that happened. This was yesterday at the West Fest in West Valley City. And that one, I guess I don't have an article that I point, but I thought there was a couple of interesting pieces here. So it was a 16-year-old fired shots into, it sounds like he was trying to kill somebody. And from the initial reports, it sounds like it was aimed at an 18-year-old who was actually murdered on the scene. So, but the thing is, he also killed at least two other people, a 41-year-old woman and her infant. Talk about horrific. And I think there are a couple other people also injured. So just imagine you go to a carnival, you're going there to celebrate with your friends, to hang out with your family. And then it's initially in the initial reports that came out, it sounded like there were two groups that were fighting. So this indicates gang violence. Later on, the police said that they didn't think that was actually accurate. So they're still investigating. But there does seem to be a violence issue increasing in the suburbs. And I'll say this, if it was a gang shooting, that would not surprise me because, as many of you know, I live in Riverton, and we had a Tren de Aragua, so the Venezuelan gang shooting that happened right near me in Harriman. It's come out here now. And this is, I will say this, gang violence is the result of failed leadership of our political class. And to all of you out there who keep re-electing the same people and putting them in office, you're the problem. You're putting in the people who are okay with this type of violence happening in your communities and continue to encourage it. Now, at the time that I was reading an article, and it said that Sim Gill, so he is the Salt Lake County District Attorney. He is a Soros-backed district attorney. So everybody understands. George Soros goes around the country and he tries to get district attorneys elected into office, and all they do is they destroy their communities. They make them crime infested. They focus on criminals instead of victims. They're not into trying to prevent crimes from happening in the first place. You do that by you being tough on crime. When you are soft on crime, you invite more crime. You talk about things like, oh, cultural stuff and things like this, instead of the expectations that we have as a society that if you are going to live in our county and in our state, we expect you not to commit crimes. If you commit crimes, you will be prosecuted, not persecuted. Although if you're persecuted, it's rightfully so if you committed a crime. You will be prosecuted to the fullest extent allowed under our laws, and you will be punished to the maximum. That's the goal. That's not what Sim Gill does. He is a soft on crime district attorney. A lot of white liberals in Utah love him because I think for them, the virtue signaling about crime gets them really excited. It's like a fetish. And they keep re-electing him, even though he's been a complete failure. Since he has gone into that district attorney's slot, Salt Lake County has gotten worse when it comes to crime, worse when it comes to quality of life. But at the time, when I read the article I read a little while ago said that he's still trying to figure out whether this 16-year-old should be charged as an adult or a minor, even though there are now 3 dead people. Not 1, not 2, 3 dead people. At least with the 18-year-old, you could argue it sounds like they had a beef. But 2 innocent bystanders, a 41-year-old woman and her infant child, and Sim Gill doesn't know whether to charge this kid, he's 16, as an adult. But at 16, you know what you did was wrong, right? There's no question in my mind that the 16-year-old knew exactly what he was doing, and he knew it was wrong. And so, but this is what you get. You put into place anywhere you put Democrats in place, they will ruin your state. They will ruin your community. That's all they do is they ruin things. And I think Utah on its current path is heading towards becoming a Chicago. And that's where I grew up. And Chicago's turned into a complete S-hole. You can fill that in yourself. It's sad because it used to be a fantastic city. And all that they have done is ruin it. They've turned it into a crime-infested S-hole. And that's the goal of Sim Gill. That's the goal of Jenny Wilson. That's the goal of Aaron Mendenhall. And if you notice, Aaron Mendenhall has gone silent after the shooting that happened on Saturday, because I think what they're trying to do is develop a narrative to try to shift the blame, right? What you should have learned this weekend is this is confirmation. The left is a violent, extremist, insurrectionist group. That's what they are. What you're seeing with the protests and all this is just insurrection, violence, destruction. That's what they always do, though. Remember 2020? I mean, do you really have to do we have to be reminded that this isn't the first time they've done this? They will continue to do it. And as long as Utah voters keep putting them into power, you should not expect anything better to happen here. We are heading towards the path of a Chicago, of a New York, of an LA, of a San Francisco, if we're not already there. Because I can tell you that the thing that in Chicago that really changed it is when I was growing up, the south side of Chicago was bad. But the rest of the city was actually pretty fine. There are parts of it that are problematic, but overall, it wasn't like this high crime shithole. Sorry. But if you go to Michigan Avenue, which is a beautiful place, no crime. And now it's crime infested. I got to the suburbs where I grew up, no crime. Now it's crime infested. They have those gangs of kids that run into stores and rob everything. That happens out in the suburbs in Illinois. We have gang violence in our suburbs. We're there. It's not that much further to go from shootings into all sorts of other crime because people are being soft on crime here. So anyway, I am hoping though what we can do is when Clark comes on, we'll be able to get a better sense of what this looks like and what the laws are in Utah. Let me just make sure. How many text messages? Okay. Mr. Producer, just tell me when he calls in, and then I have a little introduction for him before we bring him on. Okay, so while we wait for that, I am going to talk about, there is a I think we have a real problem. This crime issue actually lends itself to talking about illegal immigration in Utah and how this is a huge problem. As I said, I live out in Riverton, and there's a huge construction project being done on 118th South, right by my home. And it's being done by the Jordan Improvement. Oh, I can't think of the word. The Jordan Basin Improvement District, JBID. And the contractor is called Red Pine. Now, the only reason I keep walking by this is that I have 2 dogs, as many of you know, and what I have learned is that you really cannot teach old dogs new tricks, especially if they weigh 110 pounds. So I've got this Akita, and they go on walks 3 to 4 times a day, and 2 of those walks are we cross 118th South, and we go into Daybreak, and we walk around. And no matter how much construction there is, how many pits there are between us and crossing that street, he is adamant that he is going to walk in Daybreak every single day, twice a day. So we keep having to find ways to get around the construction. And so I walk by this multiple times a day. What I have found is that there are no English-speaking workers at the site. And by the way, this is a government contractor. So a government agency is the one that's actually doing this work. And they have hired a contractor. The contractor is required to use E-Verify and by their contract, yet every single worker that I have seen does not speak English. And this got me really worked up because the other day I walked by and the workers are talking on walkie-talkies to each other, and they are talking in Spanish on the walkie-talkies. And here's the other thing is I can tell that these are newer immigrants to the U.S. Now, the left will say when you say that, oh, you're being racist, oh, that's so bigoted, blah, 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 whatever. By the way, the left is completely bigoted at everything that they do. This is the party of slavery. That is what the Democrats are. They have been racist since the beginning of time, and they continue to be racist, including by stereotyping people like me. So when I say I'm a conservative, the response of people on the left is, how can you be a conservative? You're brown. Tell me something more bigoted than that. Okay, we will circle back to this in a little while. I'll leave you with that. Let me introduce Clark, and then we'll bring him on. So Clark Aposhian, like I said, has over 30 years of experience. He has over 30 years of experience advising Utah's legislative, executive, and legal bodies on firearms and use of force legislation. He is the owner and lead instructor of Fair Warning Training LLC, where he provides certified instruction in firearms for concealed carry, armed security, bail enforcement, and armored truck drivers. He has also been a weapon handler armorer, this one I really liked, for movies including Con Air, Independence Day, Vengeance, Reflections in Mud, Wake Up, and more. He's also the host of Gun Radio Utah, one of the top 10 firearms podcasts nationally, which you can find on our iHeartRadio. Welcome to the show. Welcome to the Goud Crowd, Clark. This has been a really event. It's been a really I'm going to say eventful. I don't know how else to say it. Weekend. I think in a bad way. And so as a firearms expert, talk about your reaction to the media coverage of the events this weekend.
Well, they're not asking the right questions. I mean, I have more questions than the media is giving me answers. And I guess that's just the way it is in the first few hours, the first few days. We only get preliminary things, and we find out a lot of the information is wrong that the media has said. And it's just because they've been given the wrong stuff. So okay. I'll give you an example. I'll give you an example of the questions that we have. One, let's talk about the No Kings. But I think it's the No Kings rally, but I think Queens are okay. So anyway,
okay.
Yeah, I should do a rim shot for that one. Anyway, so the peacekeeper, they keep referring, well, this person was a peacekeeper. Well, that's not a legally accepted term, certainly not in statute. here in Utah. We don't know what the metrics are to be a peacekeeper. My question was, you want to call him a peacekeeper? Okay. Was he contracted for security? And if so, well, then the state of Utah wants to know about that, because anybody that's acting as contract security needs to be licensed as such by Department of Professional Licensing under Department of Commerce. And if they're armed, well, then they have to have training. They have to, in addition to. So if you're unarmed, you have training. If you're armed, you have additional training. And they have to be licensed and certified. So that's a question I have. I wish they would stop using this peacekeeper thing, because nobody knows what that means. Are they armed security? Are they not armed security? Are they just watchers? Are they, you know what?
Yeah.
And then there's been a lot of talk on this guy with the AR-15. And as more information comes out, we find out that this same person supposedly, and I'm going to say supposedly, has been at other rallies openly carrying this same AR-15, same gas mask in his backpack, and has never had a problem. Kind of along the lines of a leftist Kyle Rittenhouse kind of a thing, I guess. And only,
well, can you, on that, Clark, talk more about our laws about carrying a weapon like that when you're in I guess generally, our like citizens, our ability as citizens to carry openly when we go to events or we're out in the public like that.
Doesn't make any difference if you're at a parade or not. As long as you're out in the public, you know, you could be at a parade or whatever, it doesn't matter. As long as you're legally allowed to possess the firearm, you're not an illegal possessor, you don't have a felony, you don't have a protective order against you, something like that, among the many other things. And if you're 18, and if you don't have a concealed carry permit, a very specific concealed carry permit, and you're 18 to 20, you can still carry a handgun, you can still carry a rifle, just has to be openly carried. Now, you can't have a round in the chamber. But if you are 21 and over, with or without a concealed carry permit, you may conceal whatever lawful firearm you possess, and you can do that in this parade. The problem comes if you start brandishing it under 7611-207, if you display it with the intent to intimidate or something like that, then that can be that's a misdemeanor crime. Then if you point it at somebody, that's an aggravated assault. If you shoot somebody, well, then that's a much bigger thing. But have you seen this video that's going around?
I have. I've seen a video, but I guess my question on that video though is he has the weapons in the backpack, right? It's not even being brandished or anything.
Well, I did see the video does show him with it out.
Oh, okay.
As he's running away.
Okay, so
but regardless, if he had it in the backpack, he's legal. If he takes it out, depending on what he does with it and any other actions that with that gun, any other behavior with it, it could be illegal. But first and foremost, yes, you can absolutely carry it in your backpack. You can carry it on a sling. You can carry it just in your two hands. You know, and barring any further action with it, it's legal to do.
Okay. So when you saw the video, what was your response to it?
That we weren't hearing everything from the peacekeeper, the person that shot. That perhaps, you know, he had said that he was charging the crowd when he fired. Actually, it appears now, you know, this was a video that was shot from a ways away, from a high vantage point, but it appears that the peacekeeper was aiming at the AR guy, and prior to him even bringing it up or anything like that, it was still pointed down, just barely out of the backpack, and then he shot. It looks like then he shot, then the rifle came up as the person was trying to run away, as the AR guy was trying to run away. That's what it looks like to me.
So I've been to many conservative events in Utah, and typically there is security at those events. And I know a lot of these people, a lot of it's volunteer security. From what you're saying, it sounds like in order to be security for an event like that, they all have to have certification from Doppel to do that. Is that right?
Yeah, if you're contracted, the state of Utah wants you to be licensed. If you're contracted, especially if you're contracted to carry a gun. And so I'm still waiting to hear, was this person contracted? Did they know he was carrying a gun? Did they approve of that? Did they require it? Who was it that contracted them? And I'd like to hear what Doppel has to say, Department of Professional Licensing has to say on this. But as far as just a random guy in a neon green vest, yeah, they can carry a gun too. They can carry a handgun. And if they believe that they themselves are in imminent exigent danger, and especially danger leading up to, or to the level that they're likely to be killed or even seriously injured, they can engage this person. Or if they believe an innocent third party is about to suffer the same fate, they may engage for and on behalf of that innocent third party.
Oh, that's interesting. So really, in terms of the quote unquote peacekeeper, I think what I'm getting from you is that we need more information to actually be able to figure out if he will be liable for shooting and for killing that. There's like the innocent bystander who got killed in the shooting, right?
Right, Goud. Let's take a look at that. Now, let's make some assumptions on a few things, that the person was, legitimately in fear for somebody else's life, the peacekeeper, until we can figure out another name for them. And I got to tell you, the police were everywhere over there. But think about it. The police were everywhere, but they weren't there right then. They didn't engage. They had to be told who the bad guy with the AR was when they showed up. They didn't know. Even though the police were everywhere, they weren't there. And it was an armed citizen. We'll call him a peacekeeper. This armed citizen that engaged and literally stopped him from engaging with his rifle if he was going to. And they had him down, he was down sitting on the ground when the police finally showed up. So the police just basically showed up to handcuff. And that's because the situation had, in that minute or two, resolved itself to some degree. And now, with him shooting, because it seems like the peacekeeper may have, engaged the guy with 3 shots, and whether one of them over-penetrated or ricocheted or something, it hit another individual, and very sadly, that person lost his life. If in the act of self-defense you shoot and it over-penetrates, it ricochets, it misses, and hits another person and it kills or injures them, you're not going to be criminally liable, generally speaking, unless you acted with such reckless disregard, just dancing around, firing your gun, that kind of thing. But it certainly opens it up to a plaintiff's counsel, to a civil charge. And I don't know how much money this peacekeeper has, but whoever hired him, if there is a connection, ethereal as it may be, it's highly likely they're going to be sued out of existence.
Right. Oh, I mean, I know there's a group people have been talking about, I think it's called 501 or something like that. If they were the organizers and they hired him, they should probably have gotten insurance, I would think. But I don't know if they did or not. I guess the attorney will figure that out.
If you're licensed as a security guard, you have insurance. The contract company that hires you has insurance. Doppel makes very certain that you have plenty of insurance.
Oh, wow. Okay, well, that's really helpful. Do you have a sense of where you think this will go moving forward in terms of the investigation and maybe the conclusions that will come out?
I got to tell you honestly, it's like judging a horse race from the first 20 yards. I'm really not certain in this one, because I mean I could see a criminal charge of reckless disregard or reckless endangerment and that kind of stuff on the peacekeepers' part. I could see them just saying no. We'll go ahead and a manslaughter charge, perhaps something like that, if there's going to be any criminal act. I could also see this guy with the AR having those charges refined, because he's being charged with murder because of his actions led to the death of another person, not that he did it himself. I could see those charges being refined a bit to, who knows, disorderly conduct or ag assault or something like that, because of his actions with the rifle, because they've got a heavy lift to prove that this guy was going to shoot somebody, and were it not for the peacekeeper that engaging him, that people would have died.
Yeah, that's crazy. I guess, can you tell us more about, or I want to know your feelings on this. So, I'm conservative. I go to these conservative events. I don't really think anything when people are open carrying. I assume a lot of people are actually concealed carrying as well. And honestly, a lot of times I feel safer because, like I said, I know a lot of the people, I think they're good people. If someone came and attacked, I think they'd help, right? I wonder if part of this, and we don't know all the facts, so I'll just put that out there, but if part of this is that people that were in the crowd at this event don't know Utah's laws about open carrying, about the ability to carry, and maybe it caused an overreaction to someone having a gun there, not realizing that that's actually legal. What are your feelings on that?
Well, yes, I agree that that's very likely could be part of it. In these heady days of active shooters, in these days of riots that are only tenuously peaceful, until some little tiny thing hits it, and next thing you know, a police car is overturned on fire. I think people are going to be on edge no matter what side or political persuasion or whatever their person is nowadays. And I think the sight of an AR, regardless, that just comes up with all these demonic visions, and that when you see that gun. But in that environment, in that context, I'm not going to fault people for being worried. If everybody was carrying one and it was on maybe in their hands or on a sling, that exposure would increase the tolerance level, I think. But at this point, I don't think people were used to it.
Okay, I think that's a fair point. So I guess when we see these types of shootings come up in the news, talk about maybe what kind of advice you have for those of us that are reading about it in terms of the media coverage and what we should be looking for to be able to better understand what happened.
Well, if you're going to rely on the media, you have to understand its limitations, and if you don't want to be anxious and hanging by the radio and the TV all the time, maybe give it a few days until some of this stuff starts to come out. I mean, I've got a question on the West Fest shooting as well, where three people lost their lives. My big question is, and it hasn't been answered, and I cannot believe the media is not asking this question. The shots that were fired by the initial law enforcement officer that are engaged this 16-year-old with a gun, his shots missed the person. I'd like to know how many shots were fired, and mostly I want to know where every bullet ended up, because we have not been absolutely told that this 16-year-old, that the bullets came from his gun that injured and killed the other people. Oh
my God. Okay, so that makes makes Tim Gill's response makes more sense.
I'm not accusing this law enforcement officer of those missed shots actually doing it. I just want to know, because nobody has said. And whenever I hear about a shooting and they count the number of rounds, like they always say, law enforcement fired 6 rounds or 8 rounds, or how many hit the person? How many are accounted for? And I want to know what happened to the other rounds. We know from sad experience that law enforcement versus regular citizens, armed citizens, when they engage, we injure less innocent people than law enforcement does. Now, I get it. I mean, that's just, there was a study just this year by the College of William and Mary from Dr. John Lott that looked at it, and it also found that armed engagers, law-abiding folks, not law enforcement, that engage are injured less and stop the bad guy more often. But sometimes it would be an unfair comparison because law enforcement's in a uniform and they have to respond to this incident rather than knowing exactly who the bad guy is.
Okay, that makes sense. I was just saying though that if they haven't accounted for all of the bullets, like you say, then Sim Gill's response actually makes more sense, because maybe they're still trying to figure out who is responsible for the deaths before deciding exactly what to charge the minor with. Does that make sense?
Right.
I don't know if I'm...
it does. And I think they have plenty of time to charge, and they can hold him on other charges. So it's not like they've got 24 or 48 hours to get all the charges. So.
Yeah. And then, just for one clarification point, a 16-year-old is not supposed to have a gun, right? I mean, when you talked about the different requirements, I didn't hear you say 16-year-olds can have guns and can carry them in public like that.
No, I mean, there are provisions for minors, someone under 18 years old, to have a gun, whether it be a handgun or a rifle, and it depends on how old they are. 14 and less must be with a parent or guardian, and at under 18, they have to have the permission of a parent or guardian or be with a responsible adult. And so that's the language in the code. If they don't have the permission of the parent or guardian, they have to at least be with a responsible adult to even possess that firearm, let alone shoot it.
And are there restrictions on where they can possess the firearm if they're, let's say that
as they're doing it, it has to be in a place that is legal to shoot it, like a shooting range or out at BLM land or Forest Service land, something like that.
So not at Westfest. There's no reason for that.
Not at Westfest. Yeah, no, not at Westfest. And it's interesting because 18-year-olds and up, a lot of people don't realize this, and I kind of brought it up in legislative session last session, that they were freaking out because some of the D's were freaking out because we wanted to change the code to allow an 18-year-old to actually have, because they can carry openly right now, and they can get a permit if they want to. But they can carry openly a handgun, but it has to have an empty chamber. So 2 actions to bring it to engage. And that literally takes a second and a half. I mean, it's not hyperbole to say a second and a half, 2 seconds. But we were going to change that so that they could have a round in the chamber. And they freaked out. And they said, oh, my gosh, this is just going to be blood in the streets and that. And I said, you do realize that, how about if I were to say, how about can an 18 to 20-year-old carry a fully loaded handgun in their vehicle without any permit? And they honestly, they just really freaked out. And I said, you don't realize that has been the law in Utah for 16 years. An 18 to 20-year-old without a permit can carry a fully loaded handgun in their vehicle.
Oh, wow. Okay, I didn't know that. But it's the response is interesting because 18-year-olds can join the military and be sent overseas or to a war zone to kill enemies and to be killed themselves by enemies. So the idea that they can't carry in Utah is I find it interesting. I don't know. Did you ever get any responses from the left about that? That these same 18-year-olds can be sent overseas to die?
Absolutely. And and their response is, well, they have all the training, they have their weapons instructor training. And I'll give them that they do. But
Yeah.
for 16 years, we have had this, and we're not the only state that allows that. For 16 years, we've had this, and we have not seen a pattern of problems with this. You don't see in the news, this 18-year-old was carrying a gun, and and they still have to be law-abiding. They can't be prohibited. They can't be a prohibited person, so on and so forth. But we haven't had a problem. We certainly haven't had a pattern of problems with it.
Okay. Well, thank you so much.
It's 18 and adult. We ascribe so many things to adulthood at 18, and then we mix around and we say 21, and then we, if we're driving a car or renting a car, it's like 25. What age is it? Because at 18, you can be charged as an adult and do big boy time in prison. You can move out, you can do all sorts of stuff, enter into contracts, get married, so on and so forth. But yet 18 is somehow not enough to own a gun. You can buy a handgun at 18. You just can't buy it from a federal firearms license dealer. You can just have to do it private party.
Oh, wow. Okay. Well, Clark, thank you very much for coming on tonight. I really appreciate it. I think this was really helpful for us to understand better our laws and be able to evaluate better how to look at when these shootings happen and what to think about them. So thank you.
Well, thank you for having me, Goud. I appreciate it.
Yeah. Okay. Well, I hope that was helpful to people. I know that I feel much more educated about gun laws. I don't think I knew all of that, so that's pretty cool. It's also cool that I can call someone like that up and they'll come on the show and talk to us. So let's see what I have a message from my producer. Hold on. Oh, he said to say Tracy's here. Okay, we'll have Tracy on in a second. But yeah, so I hope that was helpful for people, because I do wonder. I mean, I think we need to know more about what happened at these events, and I think this is sad because I disagree with the people that are protesting at these No Kings rallies. I don't really understand what they're protesting. But they have a right to do it, and we want these things to be peaceful because, I want people to be active. I want people to be able to protest peacefully, to be able to do it and not have to worry about gun violence and things and potentially dying at these events, right? That should not be part of your calculation. You should be able to go out there and exercise your First Amendment rights, no matter where you are in the political spectrum. That is irrelevant. It's your America too, unless you're illegal, and then you should get GTFO, get out. But for those of you that are here legally or Americans, you have a right to protest. Go and exercise it. And then also for the shooting that happened at Westfest, that's horrific. I mean, you have families there that went to just have a good time on a Sunday night, and next thing you know, we have people that are dead, including, like I said, a mother with her toddler. I mean, talk about horrible. I can't even imagine. And we shouldn't have to deal with that anymore. So hopefully, though, hopefully things will change. I don't know if they will or not. I feel like with our current political leadership, they will not. Okay, so next we have Tracy Halverson. Let me introduce her. I don't know if Mr. Producer, you can bring her up, and I'll do the introduction. So, hey Tracy, I'm gonna do my introduction before I have you talk. Okay, so Tracy Halverson is a trained legal professional with extensive experience in the legal field, having worked in law offices since the age of 16. Oh wow! Throughout her career, she has studied law passionately, developing a deep understanding of legal procedures and advocacy. She was an integral part of the Utah flag referendum, which I think a lot of people on this show know, authoring the Utah Flag Initiative and successfully collecting over 110,000 signatures, entirely on a volunteer basis, demonstrating the commitment to civic engagement and preserving the state's history. Beyond her professional pursuits, she has a strong track record of supporting friends and family in legal matters, particularly when facing governmental overreach. One notable example involved defending a friend unlawfully charged with a fabricated offense, where her strategic approach led to the dismissal of the charges with only 2 motions filed. Her keen legal insight was also critical in challenging a substantial financial obligation, the Obamacare transitional fee. which she opposed, believing it was inapplicable to her organization. Her diligent efforts eventually resulted in recovery of the $2.9 million fee, confirming her expertise in legal nuances and advocacy. Wow. That is quite a list of achievements. Welcome to the show, Tracy.
Thanks, Goud.
Talk about the most important lesson you learned from helping on the flag initiative.
So that was the first initiative I'd ever been even involved in.
Oh.
I'd signed things before, but I'd never done it. But the most important thing I learned was that the LG's office has complete control over it. And it's the most corrupt system, just like our elections. Like, it is very sad that it is so corrupt, like it is.
Okay. I'm sure a lot of people right now that are listening are nodding their heads. Oh, that's very corrupt.
Oh, yeah.
Well, tell us how you got involved with the flag initiative.
Well, it was my senator that was changing it. And I had been sending him emails since he started to do it and saying, don't change that flag. That's a bad idea. We need to keep our history. That's very important to remember our history. And he would not listen. There was no change in his mind. And then I was just on Facebook and I kind of got thrown into the referendum where they said, you're going to do in charge over this area. And I was like, oh, okay. And initially, if I would have been involved in the strategic part, I would have never done a referendum. I would have went right into an initiative. So there's a difference between an initiative and a referendum. A referendum.
Yeah, tell us more about that.
Yeah, referendums are where you repeal a law that just got passed, and that's what the intent was to repeal the SB SB 31, to repeal it and get rid of and put it on a ballot. I would have went straight in to an initiative, because an initiative, you have more time, but it's the same thing. You can use it as a repeal. You can repeal the bill, but you have more time. It is harder because you don't have people just like actively going because they know they have more time. So we tend to procrastinate unless we're paid, unless you can afford to pay and get one done. I mean, the last referendum took $1.2 million. I mean, if
talk more about that.
Yeah, that was the union referendum where they went after the unions, and that cost, I think I read in the newspaper, $1.2 million, because we, as our initiative, we were doing this volunteer, and we did it after work. We did it on weekends. I mean, these people dedicated their lives, and she ended up, we estimated we have over 110,000 signatures, and she only gave us credit for 88,000.
Okay. Okay. So you're going to have to tell us more about that. What happened what happened to those signatures from 88,000 to 110? Where did they go?
I've noticed that the lieutenant governor's office, they will just interpret the law to the way it best fits them. They don't really, to me, even with the signature gatherer or the candidate signatures, I mean, the bill was passed just to protect the signature. The sponsor of the bill stood on the floor and said, no, it does not protect your right that you have signed the petition. It will only protect your signature, which makes sense. Who wants their signature out there so someone can snap it? Right. They interpret the law the way they want to. And so they interpret this 30 days, that if you didn't turn your packet within 30 days from the first day of the signature, the entire 50 signatures were gone. And anybody messed up on any little bit of thing, it was entirely thrown out. And then they have discretion to say, well, I don't even really know if that's their signature. I'm telling you, these were grassroots, volunteer, passionate people that loved and wanted to save their flag. There was no way they were over there forging a signature. Every one of those people that signed was legitimately the person that signed the packet.
So when we were talking yesterday or the night before, you had sent me a link to an X post where you showed a packet. And I think in that packet, there were a bunch of signatures that were, let's say, on August 5th, and there was one though that was actually like, it looked like it had been dated wrong or something. And in the video, you saw that instead of just disqualifying the one signature, the lieutenant governor's office actually just tossed that entire packet. Can you talk about that?
Yeah, so we had a volunteer, and you can clearly see that he went out on August 5th, and he finished that packet on August 5th because they're all the same dates. But in the middle, somebody wrote the wrong date and wrote July 5th. Well, he turned the packet in on August 7th, so they disqualified the entire packet because it wasn't within the 30 days. And the way I found that out is I had a clerk call me, and they're like, they're throwing these packets just out, the entire 50 signatures. And they're like, you can clearly see that that person just made a mistake. They wrote the wrong date. And some people write dates weird. They'll write like 4 and then the August and then the month, and so military then it totally military days. And so it totally throws the whole packet. They would kick the entire packet. So it was hundreds and hundreds of thousands, like people were upset because when they signed, like, it wasn't just like, oh yeah, sure, I'll sign. No, it was, I want to sign that packet. And they were mad that flag had been changed. So they were to disregard those and disenfranchise. That was terrible. But it was go ahead.
So tell us more though about how the packet turn-in process was. So were you turning this into to the lieutenant governor's office? Were you turning it into clerk's offices? It would be helpful to know more about that.
So that is a good question to ask, because then you can see how it applies to even a candidate signature gathering, which the initiative, statewide initiative, which what the governor was kind of, but he is, when you got signatures in, say, the Salt Lake County, and then you went down to help in Utah County, you're like, oh, okay, I'll go to that event. And you took your packet because it wasn't finished and you gathered there. Or you did one at Mountain America and there's people coming from all over the state. They would sign your packet. Well, you could turn it in to any of those counties where the signature was gathered. So if it was gathered in Salt Lake County, even if you just had one, you could turn it in to Salt Lake County. If you had some in Utah County, you could turn it in Utah County. We figured out that Davis County, through this process, was the slime ball of the clerks. So we kind of just, he was just terrible. He wanted to do anything he could to stop us. So we figured, we're not turning our packets into you anymore. So we made sure. So somebody, if they only had Davis County, they would specifically go out of the county and gather at least one signature so they could put it into Salt Lake County or Weber County, because they're like, he's terrible. He would kick all our packets. And so there was a bill. So when I wanted to put similar to the candidate gathering, SB 207 that was passed in 2015, you can go listen to those committee hearings. And the guy that's speaking why they wanted to clarify it, they said, we want to clarify this, because they kept flipping back from referendum to be like a referendum or be like an initiative. They say, we just want it to be exactly like a statewide initiative or like initiative. So that the rules were the same, supposed to be applied the exact same. So there was no law that they could centralize those signatures, those review of those signatures. That, again, they just twisted the law to fit the narrative they wanted. And so, and that also, they listed all our names. Whoever signed the packet, it was displayed online.
Wait. Every single person. So there was no regard for their status. So if they're private, withheld, public, it was all listed.
Yep. It was all listed. And I went through, and after they wouldn't do it for the candidates, I went through and it was off, and I checked who was private and who is not. And I could show you that it was private, were there, withheld, were there. It did not matter. They were listed. And the only packets that weren't listed was the ones that she totally threw into a dark hole. Like, there was packets that people would say, we turned them in, here's copies of them. and then they'd go
Yeah.
into a dark hole and we couldn't find them. We're like, well, where'd they go?
Oh,
And
okay.
so,
So, you like tell us a little bit more about that. Before turning in the packets, did you guys like scan them or something so you had a record of what was being turned in?
yeah, because we knew we were going to have to fight. And so we still are, because now we've got the initiative process is completely, it's fabricated. It's only if you have enough money to pay for signature gatherers, like, people like Count My Vote. And then they just buy their candidates anyways to pass their initiatives. So
Oh yeah, so they just do the initiative process through the legislature.
yes, exactly. That's what they're lobbyists, and they just go, here, now that we've paid for you and we've given you campaign contributions, you will pass this initiative and give me $1 billion for my stadium. And so from the get-go, the lieutenant governor controls the process. So when you turn it in, just 3 days to put it to a fiscal impact study, and then they are supposed to return it back, I think, within 25 days. And then you're supposed to have 7 public hearings. And then before you do the public hearings, though, you have to send out all these notices.
Yeah.
And you have to put them through newspapers. And I think there was a recent bill. I read some newspaper article where they said they changed it to make it so like it would cost you $1 million to send these notices out.
What?
Oh yeah,
That's
it was
crazy.
It's crazy what they've asked. But and then you have to put it through the public notice, which is supposed to go to all these newspapers anyways. But the lieutenant governor would push all that back on us. I'm like, no, that's your job. That you're supposed to send the notice. You're the government. You're supposed to work for the people. I mean, the legislature is too.
Oh, that's really interesting. Okay, so they put out like this notice from the government. The newspapers print it. Tell us what kind of information is in the notice.
Where your public hearing is and what the public initiative is going to be, and that you can join and come put your input. So if somebody shows up and then they change their mind about, I don't like that part of your initiative, why don't you do this way? And they convince you to change it a little bit and tweak it a little bit, you can go back and say, okay, we need to tweak this a little bit and do another study and get your fiscal impact. They tried to push us because one of the county clerks didn't open her email. And so she didn't get it on until the Monday. They're like, well, you have to resend it. I'm all, no, I don't. I cannot control if she opens it or not. So it was like a total, let's pause them at every point of the time. And so finally we got all our stuff, and then you have to wait for them to give you assigned numbers to your packet. And they wouldn't give those to us. They kept them. And I'm like, what are you waiting for? So they could keep your initiative hostage and run out your time as long as they wanted.
Oh, wow. Okay. So in terms of the packet, when you said the packet numbers, did that just mean that each packet number has like a 1, 2, 3, just some sort of number so they can track
they
it?
assign them. Yeah. So they assign them a number of series that you can use. And you're supposed to put it on the packet, and then
you still have to print the packet. So they give you the number, you got to print it. Okay.
Yes, I mean, the printing of it was the most expensive thing in the entire process. I mean, we had some amazing people though. We actually went and bought printers that were used, and then we did it at our home. So it was full on grassroots. I mean, people came, we printed them, and then we put them together like in a little assembly line. I mean, it was amazing people that did this. It was all volunteer. So we did it out of our own homes, printed them, got the paper from like Costco to try to make it cheapest as we could. And I mean, people down south, they did the exact same thing. They whipped out their printers and started printing their own. And we just would send them assigned numbers, so everybody had the numbers. But yeah,
I am now beginning to understand more why they did not want it to be successful. Right, this is dangerous stuff. Tell us more about that. The organization required to be able to, I guess, like deploy people to certain locations to collect signatures, print out packets, raise money. I don't tell us about the efforts put into that.
Well, we tried to set up in Senate districts. So each person would have, so it's almost similar to the Republican Party, which is funny is the Republican Party passed a resolution that they would only support and fly that flag, but they refused to help us. The leadership would chase us out of meetings. They would not give us contact information, even though it was supposed to be online, by law. They would not help us at all. They're like, nope. And I'm like, but you said you supported it. Because if you think about it, that would be how you check your Republican, your nominees or your candidates. You'd be like, you guys, why are you passing things that our party doesn't like? Yeah. And you could actually go, okay, precinct chairs, gather your delegates, go take one packet, go get your numbers. And it wouldn't be so easy because one packet's easy. You go talk to your neighbors and you would have it like that, but they wouldn't help us. So it was pure grassroots. We set up just by word of mouth and people saying, I want to help and being passionate about it. And then they would go and set up their own, like at Walmart's and anywhere. We got chased out everywhere too. I was different. I noticed.
I thought you told me you guys got chased out of Walmart. Tell people about that.
So, everywhere we went, they tried to push us out. They would call people. Yeah. I swear they'd call the managers and say, we're getting harassed and they're really mean. And so they chase us. Riverton Walmart, people would see us. And I mean, we had swarms of people coming and trying to sign up. There were so many people. And Dan McKay, it was like a coincidence the first time because he was coming at us. We were going in or getting there. And I'm like, oh, and he saw us. So he monitored us all day. And then at the end, towards the evening of that, he came back all of a sudden and walked by and he goes, see you later. And then they came out and kicked us out. And I'm like, okay, so it's obviously you went in there and said that we were mean. And now we weren't mean. Nobody was mean. And so we got chased out of Walmart's. We got chased out of anywhere that they could call. And they could get us kicked out of. So we had wall after wall after wall. People were getting kicked out of parks. I mean, it's a public park.
Oh, that's so weird.
Yeah. And the Republican Party was kicking us out of public parks too.
Well, the Republican Party one surprises me because, to your point, I think the party actually passed a resolution saying that we support Utah's historic flag, real flag, whatever you want to call it.
Right.
And so I would think that they would allow you to come to all the events and collect signatures. That's a good 4,000 or 5,000 signatures right there. Mm-hmm. Tell us about that.
There was some of the leadership liked the flag, so they controlled it. So that's to my point is the LG's office. She was on the flag commission. She helped change it. So why would she ever be fair to us? She wouldn't, because that was her flag that she made. She didn't want it to go away. And I wonder if she was
designing the gay version of it.
Exactly right.
There's a joke there if you understand the joke.
So the whole system, and I noticed that even it's flowed into the signature gathering for your candidates. I mean, this isn't, we don't have a representative form of government anymore. And if people really think that we do, you're really naive, because they will do everything to control it. And they have controlled it. They've hidden the signatures from the candidates. I mean, they've pretty much left us with a fraudulent system. It's easily to do fraud with it.
Yeah, I'm interested. I don't know if you know the answer to this, but for this latest initiative where they collected like 150,000 something like that signatures. were all of those reviewed by one single clerk's office, or was it like with your initiative?
No, it was like with our initiative. It wasn't with what nothing in the law allowed for centralization of the signature gathering for that candidate. There's no law. They just made it up. They twisted it. And Aaron Davidson actually did a letter about it, and he was 100% right. He said, no, you can't centralize that. He's 100% right. And to me, the executive department is kind of making a mockery of the legislative department, because they pass these bills that are pretty decent and with a certain intent, but then the executive department is carrying them out not with that intent. And if a legislature, honestly, they have the duty to say, hey, that is not the way we wanted the bill. You can't interpret it that way. This is how we wrote it, and this is how we interpret it. Because to me, I interpreted it like Aaron did, that you could not centralize it. But if you can interpret to fit you best, why wouldn't you? I guess.
Okay. Before I have another question for you.
Okay.
But before that, I just want to tell anyone that's listening, if you want to call and ask questions, feel free to call in. It's 385-899-2134. Tracy, I believe, would be happy to answer your questions.
Yeah.
Okay. So let me another issue I think people would be interested in hearing about is the dust up with the group's use of the state seal. Tell us about that.
So, because the lieutenant governor was refusing to give us the numbers so that we could go with our packets and go ahead and start printing, we said, fine, we'll make our own. And if you ever look at a packet, I should have brought one. Her name and the state seal is on the front, like almost like it's been approved, like it's an official packet. So we created our own, and then we created our own like seal. It said, we, the people, the state of Utah flag initiative, or flag referendum, or flag initiative. Yeah. And we put it on there, and we took it down to her office, and then we said, either you give us our numbers or we're just going to start and go on our own. And she ended up giving us our numbers that time. But we had this amazing team that did the social, they did the social media, all the beautiful, like, I guess the digital stuff. And one of them made like a swirly of that. They took that piece of art, because we never ended up using it, and then made it like a swirly thing for one of the social things. And, Dan McKay or somebody said, I think that's a violation of the law, Deidre, on Twitter or on X. And she goes, I think so too. So she wrote us a cease and desist letter threatening us that it was a felony to use it. And I was like, and it scared some of our people. Like, they're like, oh, I'm not going to use it anymore. I'm like,
sure.
No.
I'm sure.
I'm like, that law does not apply to us. I go, we don't have any power to do anything with the sill. I go, plus it's not the sill. It was like if you make a makeshift of the sill, this, and it's a 3rd degree felony, but that law applies to her. So I responded back and said, sorry, Missy, this law applies to you, not me. So we continued to use it, and she never responded. But then,
couldn't you also, under the First Amendment, you could also say it's mocking them, right? And then it's protected activity.
Yeah, so the law. That law, it specifically is applied to the government, because they don't want another department to take it and say, "Oh, look, it's beneficial. It's officially approved." The law applies to the government, so you can't misuse it. But she then turns around. Her and Governor Cox turn around. Like, what was it? 6 months later, and they use it. Remember, they use it to denounce Natalie Klein in her election. I'm like, you guys just committed a crime.
Yeah, you're not supposed to use it for partisan activities like that.
You're not supposed to weaponize it against the people like that.
Yeah. Oh, okay. The whole thing. It's, to me, when I hear this stuff, it just sounds like when they see normal everyday people trying to get together and challenge them, they'll bend the laws, they'll interpret them in ways that benefit them, and it hurts grassroots people. I mean, like, what do you tell us what you think grassroots people should take away from this? Like,
well, what they should take away from it is there has been a narrative, and a lot of the Republicans push this, that initiatives are bad, and that it's bad to challenge them anybody. And that is not, initiatives aren't bad. You have a right, a constitutional right, to petition your government when you're upset. And that's actually a peaceful way of doing it. And I felt that our ancestors made sure we knew that we did have a right to petition our government and show that we were angry. So they specifically put it into our state constitution. I mean, the legislature right now is trying to get rid of it as fast as they can because they want to maintain the power. But like, the power comes from the people. They get their power because we grant that. And we do have to say, you know, all they follow now are these lobbyists. I mean, the lobbyists, whoever can give them, I guess, the best seats in the stadium that they just got built for himself. They get seats right behind the dugout.
Seats. They're in the boxes. Are you kidding?
Yeah.
They're not sitting in the seats.
Right. They are in the boxes. Or right behind the bees dugout too. They're right behind that. So
word to that. Oh, hold on. I need to let people know. You are listening to KMMU Main Street Media, Utah. We're live on X, Rumble, and YouTube, and our website, kmmu.org. Search KMMU on your favorite platform. Give us a call and ask our guest, Tracy, anything. Okay. Your lonely call screener is waiting for your call. The number is 385-899-2134. Wow, Tracy. I don't know what kind of questions we could get today. So, okay. Like, to your point, though, a lot of times they'll actually point to California as being, oh, look at what's happened in California with initiatives. And California has actually had some good initiatives. And I think one of them is, I think it's Prop 13 that caps property taxes. That's actually my parents, most of my family lives there. It benefits them. They even had a recent initiative that changed their law about shoplifting. They had some, like, the legislature passed a bill saying you could steal up to $900 and not get charged for a crime. That got overturned in an initiative by the people.
Oh,
right?
Good for them.
Yeah, right. And then now they're doing an initiative to try to get voter ID mandated, which voter ID, when you poll it, it polls at like 80%. So, I mean, when you hear about stuff like that, I just think, and I'm interested to hear your thoughts on this, is there value to the initiative process, and should we be looking at this to pass laws in Utah that are actually good for our state?
Yes, there is value, and especially when they're grassroots, you know, and actual laws that actually benefit the people instead of benefit corporations, because a lobbyist is pushing their initiatives, because their initiatives, doesn't matter how you look at it, to benefit their corporations. And so they get these no big contracts or the money from the government. Our initiatives, just like California, that has been, to me, a fear tactic to keep the people down in Utah. Like, be quiet, Utah, be quiet, Utah. Like, because Utahns, I think, are typically very conservative. They don't want the government in their business. They're like, back off. But when you have an election system that has been corrupted by a machine and you can't get it, you have no other choice, because you're never going to get any of your initiatives through. I mean, when we got to a certain point, because we knew that she'd just keep tossing our signatures, we asked Phil Lyman to run a bill to restore the flag, and they locked that bill in the committee and would not let it out. I mean, it's dirty. It's just dirty politics. I mean, you had 50,000 signatures from a referendum, and then you had over 110,000 signatures from an initiative, and you're not going to see that's public outcry. But when you have an election system where you can just say, well, we don't need to listen to the people because I'll just pay a company to go gather signatures and I will always make it on the ballot and I will always win because I can outspend my opponent and they will always, I've already been in the media. So my name is recognizable. So for the last 4 years, for the last 2 years, whatever they've been in office, they're going to be the ones that are recognizable because of they're always in the media. And then they've got their stupid little, I don't know who afforded the camera crew for them to go around and do these stupid commercials for themselves. Like, I'm like, who's paying for that? We are. So it's
I know.
like,
I was gonna say that one's obvious. It's you and me.
we are. So, I mean, to me, I watched a guy on X that said, he was like pleading. He goes, you guys get on there and talk bad about California. And he said, I guarantee you, we are red as red. He goes, but we cannot break this system. Our votes don't matter. And so this is how the only way that they're getting it to happen is through initiatives and getting stuff on the ballot. So I hope instead of the fear mongering that they do here, like they'll fear monger and say, well, what if this passes? Or what if somebody on the left comes in and does an abortion bill? Well, first of all, abortion would be hung up into a court system if the government would do their job right, because the government is supposed to make sure the initiative is actually constitutional and take it to to the Utah Supreme Court and say, hey, is this constitutional? You need to rule on it. And so
Yes.
to me, they fearmonger so people won't actually get active because they know that's where the power is. It is with the people, and they don't want to lose that. They don't want to lose that.
Yeah, that's an interesting point because I was thinking there are probably initiatives that people would put that I wouldn't support, but if they can go and convince people to vote for it and win, then I think our response should be, okay, good job. People obviously wanted your law, and now we should
Right.
support it. I think sometimes, maybe to your point, the legislature maybe doesn't see it that way. Is that maybe
Right.
your impression of it?
Yeah. And I think it's, unless you have a lot of money to push an initiative, it's really hard to collect it through grassroots because we had another initiative going on at the same time, and it was like Clean the Darn Air Act. And
Okay.
they actually called us later after it was all said and done. And they said, during your time, we've been watching you guys and we do not know how you collected so many signatures, because I think typically people are conservative and they understood the flag thing. They didn't want to go away. Having two flags, I don't care what you say, it's divisive. You don't have two flags. What are you going to pick a team? Like, that's like a college, football game. And then you're going to pit us at each other, come on. So we actually found it very easy to get signatures at events. But they said that they struggled, that they didn't know how we were doing it. So they said they quit right in the middle, like right from the beginning. But they said their numbers kept going up. And I'm like, what do you mean? And they said, we think your flag initiative signatures were getting applied to our initiative. And I was like, wait, what?
Oh, interesting.
Yeah. So I actually called a county clerk and I asked them, I said, how would that happen? And they checked with their person and they said, and called me back and they said, you know what? It actually could be kind of easy to do it even by mistake, because it's like a system where you just click which initiative, and you could honestly get one packet and forget to switch it to the right initiative. And so their numbers were going up, and they said, we haven't collected for months, and they just started going up again.
Well, were you guys able to go to the lieutenant governor's office or the clerk's offices and get that fixed?
It was already after. It was after the close of it in February. So we just documented it and plan on using it for the future litigations that is going to happen around this. Because, yeah, there's no way that we can keep the way they have the system right now. It is so tight that it's hard. and it's impractical for unless you have $1.2 million, which I guess you could raise if you find the right people. But to me, when you start putting money into things, that's when they go corrupt. And honestly, I don't understand why initiatives only have like, I think it's 130 days. I don't know what it is.
Oh, okay. So there's, can we go to, let's talk about that a little bit. I don't think we clearly said what the requirements are. Maybe talk about that.
So an initiative, so a referendum, I think only has 45 days, if I remember right. And an initiative you have up until February 15th. So whenever you start the initiative, you have it till February 15th before a general election. But the problem with that is why do you only have that long? Because you think about it, they tried to change our flag for, I think it was 4 or 5 years. They worked on changing that flag.
Really?
So,
I had no idea.
Oh, yeah. Dan McKay wasn't the original legislator that brought it. I think it's Handy that brought it. And when Handy brought it, he got removed. Like he didn't win the next election because people were ticked in his area that he was trying to change the flag.
Yeah.
And so he lost his election, but then Dan picked it up. So, I mean, it took them, I think, 4 years to change the flag. And they gave us how much to like make sure we keep it. And they say, well, you have 4 years of people knowing. No, people don't pay attention to their politics, not like delegates, you know.
I agree with you.
I don't agree with the unconstitutional. I think it's unconstitutional, the timing of it. And I'd like to challenge that.
Okay. So then also, I guess the other pieces are how many signatures do people need? And then how many Senate districts do they have to collect from? Because I think there's numbers on that too, right?
Right. So you're supposed to get 8%. So there's 2 different ways. It's 4% to take it to a legislator and see if they'll take it, like kind of like Phil did for us. And then there's 8% if you want to go take it just directly to the people as a vote, and that's it's 8% of the voters. So I think ours was like 136,000 at the time. It will change from year to year of how many votes. But then there's 29 counties, and you need to get at least 26%, or 26 of those counties have to be. What's that?
Senate districts, right?
Yeah, Senate districts. So there's 29. Oh, sorry, did I say counties? 29 Senate districts, and then you need at least 26 of those.
Okay.
That means.
You know, when you guys were out collecting signatures, talk about how difficult it was to collect them, like the challenge of this whole process.
So the people wanted to sign. I mean, that was not the problem. I mean, the challenge is first of all, they've taken this town square from us. They've made these shopping centers, and then the shopping center goes, well, no, this is private property. And there's actually a law from California. Back in the day, there's a case law. It was a group of students who were fighting the United Nations. Imagine that. They were fighting the United Nations, and they started. I know, coincidence. And they started a initiative, and they started collecting in this like shopping center. And the security came and kicked them out, and then they sued, and they won. They said, no, you have built out the town square, so you can't kick them out. If you invite the public gets to go there, and you cannot stifle free speech. So,
that's fascinating.
Yeah.
Okay.
And so that was the problem, is everywhere we went, we got kicked out. Like, and it was cold too. I mean, the weather, we had to face weather. And then you have these private partnerships, these public-private partnerships like Mountain America, that center, and they won't let you in there to collect. So they make you go outside. I mean, we looked like hobos sometimes because we had put up our tents and then we would put heaters because people wouldn't want to stay there and sign because they're cold.
Yeah,
So
right.
that was challenging. You got kicked out of all the places, and even in your public spaces that you own, they would push you outside and keep you outside because even though your tax dollars paid for that facility, they wouldn't let you in to use it. And
Okay, that's crazy.
it is crazy. It's really sad to how far our nation has come, because shame on us for not paying attention. And I was one of them. I did not pay attention until later in my life. And I apologize to my son and any future people, but I'm fighting like heck to protect it now. But
many times I wish I could go back to those days when I did not pay attention like this to politics.
I know.
It was much more peaceful.
It was much more peaceful, and you could sleep, and you actually went on vacation. And
yeah, I used to dance, drink, and have a good time.
Now that we see what's going on, we're like, dang it, we can't just let this go. But so there was a lot of challenges. So you had to fight those things, and then you had to fight the lieutenant governor's office of unlawfully applying the law and applying it to the way she wanted. So it's hard. So getting the signatures for a good, like, I think people would sign the voter ID one. I think there's a lot of people worried about our elections right now. And I think that would be a good initiative to sign. And I also think people are fed up with property taxes too. And that was another initiative that California did. In my view, I say repeal the whole stinking tax code, because obviously you have so much money, you're doing arts and crafts and changing our flag. So, and you have enough, so you have too much money in my opinion. If that is what we're wasting our money on, is to try to remove our history. And they did
not
that
even that. I mean, oh no, go ahead.
That's all I was going to say. They took away the Dixie, the name from down south, the university. I mean, so they've been. You would think they'd go, why are we trying to change or erase history? Why are we doing this? Instead, they just keep doing it.
Yeah. Well, they just fall for the latest thing, right? I was talking about at the beginning, the Juneteenth holiday. I think if you're going to celebrate the end of slavery, you should actually celebrate the signing of the Emancipation Proclamation. That is what ended slavery. I think the Democrats did not want that, because that would have highlighted that it was signed by a Republican, the first Republican president. And, that's a problem for them, because they are the party of slavery, and they are the party of racism, and they are the party of bigotry in general. So I think it's difficult for them, and the Republicans just fall for it. So like the Dixie Chicks changed their name to the Chicks. And that was that's the stupidest thing I could think of, because nobody thought you were racist. No. The South is called Dixie, like that. And it doesn't mean, if you say it today, it doesn't mean you're saying, oh, I want to go back to everyone being slaves and racism and stuff. You're just saying that's the historic name at this point. Okay, whatever. Right. And if anything, you can learn from this stuff, right? So the erasure of history, I think, is interesting. And the flag piece I found really fascinating, because I went to that town hall. I don't know if you were there, where Dan McKay and Candace Perucci was there. She talked about being a descendant of the pioneers, and then I guess that gave her the right to destroy the flag, et cetera, et cetera. But they talked about the history of it. And the piece I remembered was that it was, now, I don't know if I'm getting exactly right, I don't remember, but I think it was something like a Canadian designed it in a bar. And I think that's funny, because it's like Utah, the people here for the most part, don't drink. And then you have a flag that was designed in a bar, or at least the state seal or something. And that was what was on the flag. That's funny. That's history. Like, that's actually fascinating compared to what they came up with, which is, I guess, like you're saying, an arts and crafts thing. I mean, how do you talk about that historically? Like how do you tell people about the history of the new flag?
Right. Well, and if you saw their display with that big, it was like a clown show, man. They got all the fire trucks up there and hung it up. I'm like, you guys are like, this is like a circus. And they're like, look at our flag, look at our flag. I'm like, that's the history of it, is somebody acted like a king and said, I'm changing the flag. And then they stood up there and acted like a circus. So it really is funny what they're doing. It's like a bunch of clowns. But to your point on the Juneteenth, Utah passed a law where if it falls anywhere besides Monday or Friday, it has to fall on a Monday or Friday, so they get a long weekend.
It like does it, so it's like a meaningless holiday, right? You just moved. Yeah, I didn't even know it was Juneteenth today. I drove downtown because I had to meet somebody. I went to park, and then I tried to pay for the parking, and it was like, oh, you no payment required. It's Juneteenth. I was like, it's June 16th. That's not Juneteenth. Okay, whatever.
I know. It's like, it's just a made-up holiday, so let's just move it around to make us have a long weekend.
Yeah, it's ridiculous. I mean, like I said, it made sense in Texas. That's where it actually happened, right? They do celebrate Juneteenth there, but that makes sense. It's very Texas specific. Turning it into a national holiday was weird, but I think it goes with a lot of things. To your point, like a lot of politicians here, they literally fall for whatever the latest thing is, you know.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. My favorite version of that flag is the trans one. I think that didn't you have a video of where Sue Robbins, I don't know his real name, but unfurled it on the Capitol.
Oh yeah, and he waving it.
Oh my God. We should play. I don't have it. We should play that for people. God, that would be great. I think they would love it.
I'll have to pull it up and see if I can find it while we're talking. But it totally was the best, because I'm like, this is what the Republicans did.
Yeah. Otto Gynophile unfurling his flag for the whole world to see.
And you belong in Utah.
Thank you, Dan McKay. I'm so happy.
This is your legacy. But initiatives. Okay. What else did I have to tell you about the initiative part?
Oh, I want to know. Talk about like what are your future plans? Should we be looking for initiatives happening in the future?
Yes, I think.
Next.
Well, people talk about how upset they are with SB 54 and stuff like that, and I have a different feeling about how I think it's misapplied. I think they construed the law again because of those follow-up bills, but that's a different conversation. But a way you could get rid of it is, why do we require a direct primary? We never used to. And all that does is cost the taxpayer money. So why are we doing that? I mean, I don't know if you could get a lot of people to sign an initiative about saying, you pick your nominees at your parties. And if everybody thinks, well, everybody should choose who the person is. Well, they do. It's a final, at the general election, everybody gets to pick. It's just the private parties are picking their nominees. And I think that's where a lot of the confusion is for people, is they think that direct primary, everybody should choose. Well, no, let the party pick theirs at the convention and put it to a general ballot, and then everybody can choose. And if you want to be on the ballot and not part of the a party's nominee, there is a way to access the ballot. You just go gather, depending on what it is, it's 1,000 signatures, I think, statewide, which is easy. I think one of the AG's candidates did it. And so to me, why are we spending money on a direct primary? That costs taxpayers money to send out all those ballots and then have them vote. And only half the people even vote because they're not paying attention, because I think they still think it's the same way. You don't vote a direct primary. You just, that your delegate votes, and then they put them on the general ballot. So, I mean, you can do it that way, initiatives like that. I think we should do an initiative for an initiative to make those laws cleaned up, and so that we can have an equal playing field, you know, because right now the way they have set it up, it's just it's illusionary. It's really hard unless you have millions and millions of dollars. So, and it's the same thing with candidate gathering. If people didn't, just to give you an example, if people did not know, we kind of asked like Phil to do it because I wanted to see, you learn how the system works by using it. Like, so you have to figure that out. And so we wanted to learn how hard is it for a candidate to get the signatures. And I'll tell you, everybody would sign that flag initiative, and they would sign it. Sometimes they'd say, well, if you guys are supporting this flag initiative and you're telling me this guy's a good guy, then I'll sign his. But other than that, if we asked, they were like, we need to look him up first. We need to research it. You know, like they were more hesitant on signing a candidate's petition than they were the flag initiative. And so, yeah. So to me, it taught me it's not as easy. And I don't think people were signing Cox's because I don't think he's a light governor. I mean,
that's a great point.
Like he forced our children to wear masks for money. I mean, that's what he was trying to keep them in masks, is because he got federal funding for it. And if he didn't keep them in masks, he wasn't going to get his money, which he could send on to his Centercom, his family business. So, you know, I don't think he was getting the signatures. I think it was hard. And so they had to fudge the signatures. And that's why they won't show you. And I would love to see those signatures because I want to see if they stole from the flag initiative. I want to see if they took signatures from our initiative. I really do. I want to see that system, if they can change it that easily, and this is just my hunch, it's not, I don't have any facts, whatever, that would be my hunch, is that's why they're hiding it, is because they don't really have them, or they took them from our initiative. And I have the list of people signed because they put it on the internet.
I have a theory. I'll share this theory with you and then we'll have to wrap up. But so, you know, we have this lawsuit going on with Phil. I think probably a lot of people listening know about it. We had a press conference. I guess it's been more like, 10 days ago. I don't know. My last week has been crazy. So I'm a little bit, my mind's blurred, but that lawsuit is trying to, right now, the way it works is Utah hides about 40% of the voter rolls. Some of them are private and some of them are withheld. And in the withheld category, there are people that are law enforcement, military, and protective orders. So those are legitimate withheld information. And then there are people that were converted from private to withheld, I think on May 12th of 2020. So they are withheld, but they are not military, not law enforcement, not protective orders. They are not legitimately withheld. And just so people know, private, the parties and the candidates should be able to get. That would be how the law works. Withheld, the only people that can look at them are government officials. And in Salt Lake County in 2020, there were more than 100,000 people that were in the withheld category, meaning that, just to put this into like how to understand that how this works, the Salt Lake County clerk can communicate with those 110,000 people, but her opponent cannot, just so you understand. So, but what this lawsuit aims to do is to use the National Voter Registration Act to force the lieutenant governor to disclose those private and illegitimately withheld voter records to the public. And I think the case precedent is very solid for this lawsuit. What if it is successful? And I'm a litigator, so I'm always going to say if. That's just how this works. You never know. And so does not mean I'm saying it's a bad case. Just saying, that's how it works. I think you could go back to the petitions and say, hey, all of this data that you are claiming is protected under as private or withheld, it has now been released to the public. That means that that data under grandma, the interest in disclosure is actually outweighed by the interest in privacy because the data itself is already public. So I think you can go back and get the petitions at that point and then maybe start doing the analysis that you're talking about. I think that's one of the analyses you do to see, like, were these signatures legitimate, and you know, how many signatures did you actually have? I think they didn't. I agree with you. I don't think they had the signatures, and that's why we've gone through this whole mess. Any thoughts on that?
No, I agree. I'm excited. I'm excited for that case. It would be so great to actually go back and see those lists of signatures. I've got that that video if you want me to try to share it. I don't know if it'll work.
Oh, yeah, okay. I think you can access the little things at the bottom. Do you see them under us?
Yeah. So did it pull up?
Let's see. It's, oh, hold on. I have to add it to the scene, it says. I'm going to do it.
Okay.
I'm just hoping that you're not putting anything inappropriate. Okay, everybody, this is so exciting.
From the legislative session, I was a little on the fence on, was our new state flag. And I see one version of it over here. And I was looking at the state flag and watching them put it up throughout the legislative session. I was like, I kind of like it, but something's not right. So I decided to put a little touch on it.
You trans the flag. Oh my God. Do you think that that's Dan's favorite
belong
version?
in Utah, and we should see that. We should see that in our laws. We should see that.
The screaming too.
And we should see that in our
It's great.
and our
It's like the
state
best
flag.
video.
Let's have a great march. Let's have great visibility. And if you're an ally, this isn't one day out of 365. Please, we need all of you. It is time to stem the flow, raise our
Mr.
voices.
Producer says unhinged.
Okay.
Accurate. Okay. Thank you, Tracy. That was a great way to end this interview. I hope everybody listening got to enjoy that, or if you saw it, get to enjoy that video. That's a good one.
Well, thanks for having
That's to
me.
give you a sense of where we are.
Yeah.
Yeah. Thanks for coming out. See you
Okay.
soon.
Bye-bye.
Bye. Okay, folks. So I hope that was helpful to you. The whole point of this was just to kind of get people to understand the initiative process, how it can be useful, and all the challenges with it. If you saw and listened to that, there's so many roadblocks put in the way. And I think generally, especially when it comes to the grassroots, a lot of it's not just one party, by the way. Both parties do not like their grassroots. And I think the reason is because if you get into the grassroots, what you'll find is that people on the left and right actually agree on a lot of kind of basic issues. I found this when I ran for state house, where there's a broader range of issues that you can talk about because the legislature just handles more things. And there were, like, I am not a doctor. I wouldn't consider myself to be, oh, Mr. Producer, everyone in this state needs a civics class. Something like that. But, I think I like good ideas no matter where they come from. And so when I ran for the state house here, I actually ran on, there were some proposals I made that I think were more Democrat proposals. So for example, I proposed to ban hedge funds from buying homes in Utah. That helps your average Utahn who wants their children and their grandchildren to be able to live here. The people it does not help are the people that take all the donations from the big moneyed groups, right? If you understand how free markets work, hedge funds are not part of a free market. They have access to cheap capital and plentiful capital that you do not have access to, your children do not have access to, and your grandchildren do not have access to. So they are competing completely unfairly with your children for homes in your neighborhood. A lot of Republicans that are in elected office don't support initiatives like that because they take money from big hedge funds. They take money from developers. They don't actually want to help you. They're trying to help their donors. And the Democrats are no different. So a lot of the elected Democrats are the exact same. When I ran that race, I got, it was the establishment that came after me, the Republican establishment. And I know for a fact, it's because they thought I would be a danger to them in the legislature. And the reason is because I'm uncontrollable, right? Like, I don't really care what they think about me. And I'm not doing stuff because they tell me to. I actually want good ideas that actually help at normal, everyday people. I don't care about donors. I don't care about Gail Miller. I don't care about Ryan Smith and all of his clearly plastic surgery that he gets. Because he kind of has gay face, what I would call gay face, if you've looked at him. And so, people like me are a danger and they want to keep us out. But it's not just on the right, it's on the left as well. I think your more populist Democrats, they try to keep them out of office. They have one, but he's kind of crazy. They got that Nate Bluen guy, but that guy's like, essentially like, posting like pictures of kids and saying how he thinks they're hot, which is gross. But, so they got weirdos. That's their problem. Okay. So I want to, let's get back to my, discussion about the Jordan Basin Improvement District issue with the contractor in this last few minutes we have left. Before I continue, just if you want to call in, if you have any comments, feel free to do so. It is 385-899-2134. I was like, what's the number? I can't remember. 385-899-2134. We do have a couple comments here. So one is from Disagree Butter. Oh man, I almost forgot about the Goud Crowd. Please forgive me. Oh, well, you're forgiven because you didn't forget. Almost forgot is not the same as forgot. And Angela Aploni, if I have mispronounced your last name, I apologize. You're so right. The Dems are the party of slavery, racism, and bigotry. Preach it. You are correct. Okay. So like I was talking about, there's a contractor called Red Pine. They're doing this project for the Jordan Basin Improvement District. They are supposed to use E-Verify for their employees, but when I walk by, it's very clear that the employees there are not Americans. And it is very clear to me that they are recent immigrants. For anyone that is going to now say that that is racist to say, let me just say that my parents are immigrants. I have seen family members immigrate here and friends of family immigrate here. And there is a distinct difference between somebody who freshly immigrates from another country and someone who has been here for a long time. My parents have been here for 50 years. I don't know what they were like when they first immigrated. I assume that they were probably like their brothers and sisters when they first immigrated, that you could tell that their mannerisms, the way they stood, the way they talked was different because they were from India. But 50 years later, their mannerisms and things are different because they've been here that long and they have assimilated. Now, I will say they still have an accent, so that doesn't go away. Although, I actually cannot hear the accent, if I'm totally honest with you, just because I'm used to it. But, they've assimilated. It's different. If they walk down the street, you'd be able to tell that they've been here for a long time. That is not the type of person that is working on that project. Now, under their contract, they're supposed to use E-Verify. According to the Jordan Basin Improvement District, they have a full-time inspector who is working and evaluating that project. Well, let me give you an example of one of the rules they broke. I was driving home on 118th, so I was in the westbound lane, and they narrowed the lane so much that my truck got scratched on the passenger side by a tree. So I complained. Right. And I complained and I was like, hey, this lane is so narrow. I just was driving my truck and it got scratched by this tree. So either you need to widen the lane or someone needs to go and trim the tree. I can even tell you like the bureaucratic mess this was. It was like, well, that tree is owned by South Jordan and they're supposed to trim the tree. And I'm just like, okay, can someone trim the damn tree? This is not that difficult. Do you want me to go trim it? I'll go trim it because I don't want someone else's truck to get scratched. Well, the guy tells me that the lanes are supposed to be 11 feet wide. It takes me a couple of days to get them to tell me this. So I'm like, okay, 11 feet wide, which is obviously wider than my truck. But I go out one night by my house and I'm like, I swear that these lanes are not 11 feet wide. I am so sure that they're not measuring these. I go out and I measure the lane by my house. It is 9 feet, 9 inches wide. So they're asserting to me over email that the lanes are 11 feet wide and that is their requirement and they're not following their own rules. So if you're not following the rules in terms of having these minimum lane widths that you have promised that you're going to do for safety, there's a safety issue at here, right? Are you following the other rules? And I'm going to tell you, I don't think they are. So I've been going back and forth with this Jordan Basin Improvement District. They said in order to, and let me step back for 1 second. On this E-Verify piece, it's not that the agency is going to go and check to make sure that they're using E-Verify, they have to check a box asserting that they're using E-Verify. That's very different. That's not actually checking it. In order to check it, they have to go and do an audit of the contractor to make sure that they are using E-Verify. Well, I asked them and I said, well, can you guys now go check? I am telling you, I do not think that their workers are legal. And the E-Verify requirement applies to both Red Pine and all of their subcontractors. So there should be no illegal aliens on that project. But I'm telling you, I'm like I said, I think that there are. So what's kind of interesting about this is I was doing some research. And hold on, before I continue. I think the lesson here is we all need to be involved in holding these agencies accountable. There's very little that we can do for these private contractors in terms of whether they're using illegal alien labor or not, except don't hire them. That's one thing you could do, right? We could start boycotting businesses if they have illegals, which I think we should do. I really want all, and my goal is every single illegal alien that is in the US needs to be deported, whether you self-deport or you are physically removed from this country. You are here illegally. I don't really care how long you've been here. I don't want to hear your stupid sob story. Just GTFO, get out. You've abused our system long enough, and it's time for us to focus on Americans first. This is the only country where we will get the benefit of being given some sort of privileges that we can't get anywhere else. Everywhere else, they shit on us. Oh, sorry, I didn't mean to swear. Everywhere else, you will not be treated well as an American. The least we could do is have some sort of special benefits in our own country, the one that we're required to go and fight for. And so every single illegal alien needs to be kicked out, and they need to be kicked out of this state too. And I know a lot of people here have heavy sympathies towards illegal aliens. I think some of this comes from, people, they go on missions overseas and they think that the answer is to bring all these people here so they can live a better life. But the real answer is they need to build up their own countries. A great resource for doing that is all the illegal aliens who have been here, sponging off our system, stealing jobs from Americans, using our resources, getting a great education for their kids. They can take all of that back to their home country now and they can improve it. So, but with these contractors, the government ones, when you see a project and you are driving around, do the observations yourself. Who is working on that project? Does it look like these are potential illegal aliens? Write down the name of the contractor and the agency that's working on it and file a grammar request and start communicating with them about the contract, whether they required E-Verify. How do you get them to do an audit? If we as the individual citizens start doing more to make these agencies realize that we are watching them and that we want our tax dollars only being spent on Americans, they will respond to that. They're used to just doing whatever they want in this state because nobody will challenge them or ask questions. And I think it's time for that to change. We do have power. And then as this kind of develops, if I confirm that this Jordan Basin Improvement District has a contractor using illegal aliens, I guarantee you, I will publicize that. And I'm going to start talking to my legislators about being more strict on these contractors. Because I think if they have illegal aliens on their site, they should be criminally prosecuted for it. No, and I want no exceptions for it. Criminally prosecute them because you took jobs from Americans and you gave them to illegal aliens. Now, I wanted to talk about, there was an effort last year, because I think part of what happened is that and I think this is interesting. In 2022, actually, let me put it this way. Until 2022, Utah had a law that required companies with more than 15 employees to use E-Verify. In 2022, they changed the limit from 15 to 150. Okay, anybody think that that's a little bit? Oh, thank you, Mr. Producer. Mr. Producer says I can swear whenever I want. Well, that's good to know. Although I don't know if the listeners would appreciate that. If you have a kid there, so I apologize. If you have a child there and I just swore, I am very sorry. I should not have done that. I try to control myself, but sometimes I just get very passionate. If you met me in person, I do swear a little bit. I'm not as clean spoken as when I'm on the radio. Okay, so I want to show you this. here's all the people that in the House that voted for that bill to increase the number of to increase from 15 to the threshold. So employers, it used to be employers with 15 or more employees had to use E-Verify, and in 2022 they changed it to 150. Hold on, okay, here we go. So I'm going to share this with you. It's HB 252 in 2022, and I just want to highlight a couple of legislators because these ones spend a lot of times trying to convince you that they are not pro-open borders. Here is Candace Perucci. She voted for that bill. Candace actually, her district got flooded with illegal aliens. Lots of Venezuelans are in Harriman now, which is part of her district. She is totally for it. She has not done anything to change it. She claims that they're all seeking quote unquote asylum, but if you pay attention to that whole system, it's a bunch of fraud. People claiming that they were politically, that they're afraid for their lives in Venezuela, when the reality is that the Venezuelan government does not give two S's about them, and they're just trying to take advantage of our system. And I think Candace knows that, but she's an open borders person. You don't vote to increase the threshold from 15 to 100, so that employers only have to use E-Verify if they have 150 and more employees. When they used to have to use it when they had 15 or more. You don't make that vote unless you are pro-open borders. So she's going to run for CD4 and claim that she is not pro-open borders. Remember this vote. Ask her about it. You can see other people. The speakers on here. Speaker Schultz voted for this. There's some that surprised me. Rex Ship voted for this. He's actually pretty conservative, so that one surprised me. Brady Brammer voted for this. So that means he's pro-open borders. These are your open borders freaks. Oh, Amy Winder Newton's brother voted for this. I pretend that I was surprised, but I'm not. Not at all. Okay. Although look at this is nice. Lyman voted against it. Carrie Ann Lisenby voted against it. Surprisingly, Brian King voted against it. That's a weird one. Democrats usually very open borders. Okay, so this is the things that we need to pay attention to, right? What a lot of these legislators want you to do is they go and they vote on these bills, and then they want you to forget about them. And they're going to rewrite history when they run for office. So when Candace now comes back from DC, just so you know, she's in DC. She's claiming she was there for the Army parade. I will tell you that I believe she's there because she's talking to donors about her CD4 run and trying to figure out all the promises she needs to make secretly to those donors so that they will support her when she runs for Burgess Owens' seat. And I think it's likely going to happen next year. And the reason that that's the real reason why she's there, because all the big wigs and donors are right now in DC for the Army. They were there for the Army birthday parade. And that's really what's going on. And, we'll see you next year if this gets confirmed, but I think I'm correct. And she was there kind of making her promises to the donors because she is a product of the donors. And she does whatever her donors want. She is not, and that is what that bill I just showed you, so HB 252 from 2022, that's an example of that. You only vote to change the law and make it so that employers with more than 150 employees have to use E-Verify. You increase the threshold from 15 to 150 if you are doing it for your big donors. Okay, it's 7 o'clock. I hope that all of you have enjoyed listening to the Goud Crowd this week. I have enjoyed being here. It was sad to take a week off, but I feel good. I'm energized. Let's get this thing. I will see you guys next Monday, and we will have another, hopefully fun show with some great interviews. So thanks for listening to Goud Crowd. I'll see you next time.